Hi there, hope you're doing really well today and welcome to our weekly live Q&A. It is Wednesday, 11 a.m. Pacific time, and that's when we usually do it. As you can tell, I'm by myself today, and that's because I only asked Coach Veronica yesterday if she could join, and she was planning a trip, so she couldn't, and I felt like I couldn't ask Coach Alina with such short notice if she could join, and Coach Michelle is actually hosting a small group discussion. So anyways, before we check in to see if there are, before I hopefully get some questions and get to answer some questions from the community, I thought I'd take a few minutes to just, share some updates and share what's going on. So yeah, by the way, if you're joining here, please feel free to ask questions in the comment section. But before that, I thought, again, I could just use this few minutes here to share some updates. And the first update I want to share is that about like 3 or 4 weeks ago, I had this idea for like an experiment, which was a sort of an a la carte small group discussion option. So in our Insomnia Immunity program, we do drop-in classes, which are Zoom classes, like Zoom calls, where we check in with all the students, see how they're doing, and have a discussion. We do that twice a week. But I was thinking, what if we offer that sort of a la carte, if we have talks like that here and there? So I did this small group discussion about 3 weeks ago, and I could tell it was like there was a real interest. It sold out really quickly, and oh, Brandon's here. Very, very nice. I'll answer your question in a second. But yeah, a few updates here. So yeah, I saw there was a real interest in these small group discussions. So I did the second one. It was full too. I did the one with Lily Size. It was five people joined that one. And today, Coach Michelle is hosting a small group discussion. It sold out really quickly. So I can just tell that there's an interest for these. So we'll have more of them. And if you want to make sure you get notified when we have a small group discussion, then join our newsletter. You can do that by clicking in the description of really any new video. It says like, do you want a roadmap? And if you download our roadmap, you'll automatically be included in our newsletters, and you will be notified with that. And what else? I'll just share maybe one more update, and then I'll check in with this question. But the other update is that we've never had more students in our immunity program, as well as in BedTyme, and which is super nice. I mean, this is like a dream coming true. How the things are growing, and we're adding more coaches, and we have actually one. I'm actually in the process of adding one more coach. I'm not going to announce who it is yet, but really excited about that. So yeah, little updates there. Let me answer some questions here. It is Brandon who's with us today, and he says, "Daniel, hope you're well." I am. Thank you so much for asking for the well wishes. And Brandon asks, "What's the connection between health anxiety and insomnia? My dad doesn't sleep long hours, but he doesn't worry about it or the impact on his health. But that is my fear. I'm starting to realize that my personal journey is more so struggling with the potential effects on my health and longevity, and also obsessed with the appearance changes like red eyes or dark circles." Sorry, of course, to hear about these, the things that are troubling you, Brandon. But I'm glad you're here and ask these questions, because there's so much we can talk about here. So, the first thing that comes to mind is something that you've heard me say many, many times, surely, which is that there's no evidence whatsoever, actually, that short sleep or insomnia causes any health problems. And as you can hear, I often, almost always I say both, like short sleep or insomnia. Neither of them have been shown to cause any health problems. And the reason I say that is when I say when I just say like insomnia has not been shown to cause any health issues, then a lot of people are like, yeah, but sleep deprivation has. But that's not true either. Like neither short sleep, like sleep deprivation, or insomnia has been shown to cause any health issues. And you may say like, what's the evidence? Well, we have our Heard Online series. Like, very often, I would say now it's become like maybe twice a month. We look at an article that makes such claims that there is a causal link, but we have not found anything yet. And I review this all the time. Have not found any evidence whatsoever to back up that insomnia or short sleep causes any health issues. So I think that is just very nice to know. And now the second part of this has become like Brandon asked, like, what do you think about the connection between health anxiety and insomnia? I want to say this: it is very, very common. to have both, to struggle both with health anxiety and insomnia. In some way, insomnia can become a sort of health anxiety, right? When the reason we're not sleeping is that we're afraid that not sleeping will cause some health issues, then that can make us afraid of not sleeping, and we define insomnia really as, a struggle that happens when our brain has become afraid of not sleeping, right? So they're very much, there's a lot of overlap between the two. Now, this said, I want to spend maybe a few seconds here on health anxiety. And, the way I see like the kind of like the key insight when it comes to insomnia to me is the insight that, my brain has been confused and it's been starting to be afraid of being awake. It's become afraid of a mind state, which is, which cannot hurt us. Like, it's just, it's completely safe to be awake. Seeing this confusion can really help. So what is the analogy to that when it comes to health anxiety? Well, to me, I'll share it with you in a second, but I want to kind of like highlight why I think, this is the key. So with health anxiety, we understand that we are sort of like too afraid of something. We're afraid of a potential health issue that we sort of cognitively realize is probably unlikely. And here's the thing. Let's say, we have been afraid of having, diabetes for some reason. We think, oh my gosh, I might have diabetes, and we become really worried about it. We read about it, we convince ourselves that this may be what's happening to us, right? And it seems that the resolution of that becomes just to find out, do I have it or not? So we, check our blood sugars. Turns out we don't have it. And it can seem like that's the end of that. Like, clearly we didn't have it. But everyone who has health anxiety knows that it doesn't stop there. It then shifts to something else, or we think like maybe the test was wrong or something like that. So the key to me is understanding that, confirmation of whether we have something or not is actually not what leads to the struggle. In fact, if anything, it probably perpetuates it, because the key when it comes to health anxiety to me is understanding that the brain, when it comes to health anxiety, has become afraid of uncertainty. What is scary to the brain when it comes to health anxiety is uncertainty, not knowing for sure if we have this or not. And when we see this, we can realize that, my pursuit of certainty, my pursuit of trying to figure out, do I have this or not, actually reinforces that uncertainty is a threat, because that's what we're trying to escape. Okay, so we can see that, when insomnia, we're trying to escape wakefulness. That's the perceived threat. With health anxiety, it comes to like, we're trying to escape uncertainty. And then, when it comes to kind of like, how can we leave these struggles? To me, it becomes very similar. With insomnia, it becomes a process of teaching the brain that we're safe. Being awake is safe. And with health anxiety, it becomes, to me, a process of teaching our brain that uncertainty is fine, and uncertainty in itself is something that isn't a threat, or it's something that, in fact, we all have. Like, if you ask any random person, like, how sure are you that you don't have diabetes at this moment, most people will be like, I don't know. Actually, there's uncertainty for all of us. And when we see this, that can be really helpful. Now, of course, it's a little tricky, because nothing here is medical advice. If anyone is worried about their health, I say you should talk to your doctor, but at the same token, when you're like, I'm a little bit worried about my health, but I sort of realize that it's probably unlikely that I have this, that can be an invitation. That can be an invitation to be like, okay, what I'm going to do now is not pursue certainty, but be uncertain. Allow the emotions that come with uncertainty, and that can really help. And then when we're no longer afraid of uncertainty, then that struggle really fades away. And Brandon also said, I realized that my personal journey is more struggling with the potential effects of my health and longevity, and also obsessed with appearance changes like red eyes or dark circles. When it comes to appearance insomnia, I actually recently made an sort of an what do you call it, a more up-to-date version of our teachings on appearance insomnia. I will say that the interview with Kristen is a really nice one of the success stories where she talks about how during her insomnia she would like go close to the mirror and like inspect herself to see if there was any changes. And when we look for something, we often find it. And so that's kind of like one thing that can help with the parents' insomnia to kind of take a close look at like is it true? Like if we look at old pictures of ourselves, or if you ask people, is it really true that we look different? And just seeing that just that detective work can often lead us to see that, oh, there is maybe not so much of a correlation that I thought, and that can relieve the pressure. Another thing that can help there is more the acceptance route of being like, yeah, maybe I will have some bags on the desk, maybe my ass will be a little red, but what will that mean? That I'm no less welcome in society, that people won't like me, or like will I be isolated or ostracized or anything like that? Of course not. Of course not. You'll still be loved, you'll still have friends, you'll still be part of society, right? And we see like it doesn't really matter so much. That can relieve us of so much pressure. And then finally, this was kind of a recent realization for me, is that often when people say you look tired, that actually has nothing to do with like how open or closed our pores are, or the kind of shade of our our skin, but it has more to do with our composure. Like if somebody's kind of like if somebody is how should I say this, like our inside can be reflected on our outside. If we're kind of feeling scared, sad, hopeless, we can often have like the sloping shoulders, we look down, we don't make eye contact, we're sort of like in our own world, something like that. And then people can often say, you look sort of tired, which has nothing to do again with our appearance per se, but more how we feel on the inside. Which is not to say that anyone can like snap out of how they feel, but just to see like, aha, looking tired may not have to do with like my skin or anything like that, but rather my emotions. And then again, it takes the pressure away from sleep, which can be really helpful. So Brandon, I hope that helped. And with that said, let us check in with Desiree, who says, hey Daniel, can you go over the Bermuda effect? I swear some nights I don't fall asleep and feel like I was awake, but my husband mentions he went to the bathroom and I didn't hear him. Absolutely, Desiree. Let's spend a little time on the Bermuda effect, or the Bermuda Triangle effect, which may or may not be related actually to what Desiree is describing here. So what Desiree is describing mainly here is having a sense that, I'm going to say she, correct me if I'm wrong, that she didn't sleep at all, that she was awake, but her husband says, you did sleep, right? And what we call that is, there's actually a common term for that, which is paradoxical insomnia. And we often talk about like hypersleep, and part of hypersleep is what we call time skipping, and we just like, we felt like time just skipped ahead, but it doesn't feel like we slept at all. And to me, well, firstly, it's helpful to know that this is super common experience, nothing strange or unusual at all. Number two, we sleep more than we think we do. What your husband noticed there is true. Like sleep happened, although we didn't experience it. And then question can become like, why is that? Like, why is that happening? To me, it is sort of like a cover-up story. To me, it's the cover-up story, because the brain is the survival machine, and it takes its job very, very seriously. So when the brain thinks that we are under some threat, we're in danger, it thinks like, okay, my job is to keep us awake. We have to be vigilant. We have to be awake. We cannot allow sleep to happen right now. That's our job. But the thing is, sleep always happens. Like this, just a biological function that sooner or later we will all sleep. But when that happens, instead of our brain telling us the truth, which is, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, I fell asleep. I made sleep happen, and it wasn't supposed to happen. Which is sort of like the brain is like this. It's supposed to be the sentinel that's keeping guard, but it fell asleep and it's kind of embarrassed. So instead of telling us that, it just tells us the story of, no, there was no sleep happening. Nope, I was doing my job. We didn't fall asleep. Something like that. So the story becomes that we didn't fall asleep, when in fact we did. I think it's a little bit of a cover-up story for a sort of a survival-minded brain that is like a little bit embarrassed. Something like that is how I interpret it. Why that happens, why time can skip ahead, and why we have what's called paradoxical insomnia. Now, as you see, I haven't talked at all about the Bermuda Triangle effect, but the Bermuda Triangle effect is more when we have a sense, we think that our sleep drive has vanished, like we have no sleep drive because we don't feel sleepy at all. Like we don't feel sleepy for days, weeks, maybe longer, right? And again, it can seem like something is wrong there. But in reality, what happens is that when our brain thinks we're in danger again, sleep is not something that's a priority. In fact, the brain thinks we shouldn't sleep when we're in danger. We have to be on high alert. So when we're in danger, we have this like hyper aroused state. We're hyper vigilant, and that masks our sleep drive. So we don't feel sleepy. Our sleepiness in a way is gone. Our sleepiness is gone, but that doesn't mean our sleep drive isn't there. Our body still needs sleep. The sleep drive is there. It's just that we don't. It's kind of masked. Like the experience of sleep drive, which is sleepiness, is masked by that hyper arousal. Same thing can happen with many other things. Like when we're stressed or anxious or something like that, we don't feel hungry. It doesn't mean that our body doesn't need to eat. It still needs to eat, but we don't experience hunger because again, when we're in danger, the brain doesn't think this is a good time to eat or sleep. So those feelings can be masked by hyperarousal. And so, yeah, the teaching there with the Bermuda Triangle effect is again to normalize it, to see that nothing strange or unusual happening, and then it doesn't become its own loop of worry. But we can leave that. That struggle. So, Desiree, I hope that made sense to you. And let's check in with Ryan, who I don't think has asked so many questions here before. Ryan says, what if I'm waking up after barely sleeping and not feeling tired? So yeah, this is actually tied in with what we talked about, the Bermuda Triangle effect. So after we sleep a little and not feel tired, that can seem strange. It can seem like I hardly slept, but I'm not feeling sleepy. I'm not feeling tired. Why is that? Well, just like hyperarousal can block our sense of, like, it can mask our sleepiness, if you will, for a long period of time. So it can do after we can wake up after having slept very little and wake up feeling very alert because of that hyper arousal. And sometimes we can even have what we call like the Energizer Bunny phenomenon, where this becomes a sort of an escalating loop of hyperarousal, where we sleep very little, and then not only are we have this baseline hyperarousal, but now we're thinking this must mean something is wrong. I slept very little and I have all this energy. That must mean something is wrong. And then we become more hyper aroused and we actually have more energy and we don't sleep. And we're again like, oh my gosh, I didn't sleep for 2 nights and I have all this energy. Something must be really, really wrong. And we can have that until we eventually have some type of crash event where we, finally sleep, and then the cycle can start over again. But that Energizer Bunny phenomenon is quite common. And again, nothing strange or unusual when you understand it. Let's see. Red Star Edis is here and says, hi, Daniel. I'm trying to think of a question, but after a month of watching your videos and reading Set It and Forget It, I think I'm close to reaching recovery. Thanks for everything. That's amazing. Super glad to hear this, Red Star Edits, and thanks for all the support and the wonderful comment you left on Instagram the other night. Dirty Joker says, sorry I'm late. Glad you're here. Aaron says, hi, Daniel. So let's say tonight, how can I calm down my hyper arousal? And now, this question of like, how can I calm down my hyperarousal is of course a very common one, especially when we understand that, okay, the hyperarousal is behind so many of the unpleasant experiences when we struggle with sleep. But I'd say that hyperarousal is just like sleep in itself, or insomnia, or all the inner struggles, meaning the more we try to have control, the more struggle we will have. The more we try to push away hyperarousal, the more of it we will feel. It's sort of like when hyperarousal is part of this like messaging system inside us, where the brain is always trying to communicate with us, right? And thoughts I think of as messages, and emotions are like signals to us, and hyperarousal is sort of in that it's like a signal too. It just signals that the brain thinks that there's something to be looking out for. Now, if we go like, if a friend of ours says like, hey, Daniel, like, maybe you shouldn't buy that car you were thinking of buying because it's no good. And I go like, whatever, I kind of ignore them. Then they're going to be like, oh wait, I had an important warning message for my friend. I've got to tell them even more. So the more we try to push away like a message or signal, the more it becomes amplified. In fact, just randomly, I'm thinking about Harry Potter here. Like, we're reading Harry Potter with my kids, and this is not a spoiler. I think not an important spoiler, but in the first book, one of the first things that happens is that Hogwarts has this message for Harry Potter, and they want to invite him to the school, but his host family, like they're totally anti anything magic, so they don't want him to hear it. So he gets a letter, but the host's dad like rips it up and says like, okay, no, you don't get that. But then he gets like 2 letters the next day, then he rips them out, and then eventually these letters come through the chimney, they come under the door, they get kind of overwhelmed with letters. And that just made me think of this, like, the more we try to push away hyperarousal, the more amplified it becomes, because the brain is trying to communicate something with us. So as odd as it sounds, it is the opposite of health. That's like, okay, I'm willing to experience hyperarousal, I'm willing to hear the message, feel the signals. That leads to more peace. And like, again, like, how can I do that tonight? For that to happen tonight, timelines are really tricky, because they lead to like more pressure. And like, it's the other paradox is like, the sooner we want relief, the longer it's probably going to take. The more we're like, I'm okay with it the way things are now, there's no pressure, I'm willing to experience this, the easier things get. So that came to me, Alan, when I heard that, Aaron, when I heard this. So I hope that made sense to you. And with that said, let's check in with Eric. Eric says, hi, Daniel. Thanks for your brilliant work. I mean, I'm so glad to hear it. Thanks so much. What are your thoughts of insomnia as it makes me go? Oh, that was odd. I felt I went a second there, but I think okay. Yeah. Burnout is sorry about the Wi-Fi. Hope it'll be okay. I see there's some issues with it. Well, we've had many students, clients, followers who've felt burned out, and insomnia has been part of the struggle. And I would say this, that there's nothing like, to me, I would say there's no like, maybe to me, there's no like direct link between insomnia and burnout, or burnout insomnia. Is not like one necessarily causes the other, or vice versa. But to me, it's sort of when people ask me about like, hey, Daniel, what about depression and insomnia? It's the same thing. We can be depressed and not have insomnia. We can be depressed and have insomnia. And it's the same thing. We can be burned out and have insomnia and not. But the key thing to me is that I think all the inner struggles come from the same place. When it comes to burnout, to me, the key thing becomes to find out like, what is it that I'm trying to escape? Is it feeling fatigued? Is it maybe that like I felt tired because of like, circumstances like stress at work, stress at home, which is totally normal, right? Sometimes we're just like, we just taken too much on our shoulders, right? And we feel like this is too much. But to me, that may not necessarily lead to burnout, as in kind of like burnout being an ongoing self-sustaining issue like insomnia. To me, when we have any type of ongoing self-sustaining, struggle, that to me means there's a component of avoidance and fear. And often when it comes to burnout, that can be fatigue, that we have been tired, which is a very normal human emotion. Actually, we can be like emotionally fatigued, and that in itself is, again, something we all experience. But if we then add on the layer of fear to that we're like, oh my gosh, I'm more tired than I should be. How can I be less tired? I must be more refreshed. I must do something to feel better. Then it becomes this ongoing loop where like the fatigue, the emotional fatigue, is sort of a signal again. And when we're not willing to hear that signal, it becomes amplified. And then the more we do to not feel fatigued, the more fatigued we feel. and then we can have this like, you know, sense of burnout, you know. And I know this is very, very general and may not even apply to you, but again, to me, it's like the key is to seeing that all our internal struggles really come from the same place. And yeah, I think that's really where things go in my mind. I hope that made sense. And as things go along, I want to you know, continue expanding on these ideas about how things are connected, etc. I think let's conclude there. And I'll just say again, thanks for everyone for being here, for sharing your thoughts and being part of the community. Eric said thanks a million. That brings a lot of that's so nice, so nice, so glad to hear that. You know, this is like the gas. I always say, like, when I hear comments like that, I'm like, this is the gas that keeps the tank always full, and it's so nice to hear that. So yeah, thanks for being here, everyone. As always, if you know you're finding a way to where you want to be, thanks to the content here, that is amazing. If things are tricky, you're not seeing things clearly, you know, it's hard to you know, connect the dots, etc. Then, you know, as always, check out our website, check out our coaching options. If you like to join any of our programs, we look forward to seeing you on the inside. Well, that said, it will conclude here. Thanks for being here, and we'll see you next time. Bye for now.